A sergeant out for a bite to eat with his underling tries to put his hand on the man's leg and God knows what more.
We're learning about the moments just before a James City County police officer shot his sergeant outside a Williamsburg bar.
Michael Rusk is facing charges in connection to that January shooting, which seriously hurt Sergeant Christopher Gibson.
From the north and the south and the east and the west and all the way around the world, I'm RJSMITH, and welcome to Crazy News Reacts, where I collect the craziest news from around the country and the world and bring them to you at midnight every day. So without further ado, let's get going with Cop on Cop.
Investigators initially said the two officers got into a fight after a night of drinking. But as 10 on Your Side's Julie Millay learned, the shooting might have been about much more than a bar fight.
Yeah,
Julie?
Tom and Amy, investigators simply said the two officers involved in the shooting were known to each other. Now we're learning what that might really mean. The alleged shooter, Michael Rusk, says he pulled the trigger in self-defense because of unwanted advances by his sergeant. We're about to share exclusive surveillance video and the 911 call from the shooting, which we played for Michael Rusk's family for the first time.
You know what's really crazy about this, though? If it was a male making advances on a female, this would be national news, right? One cop tries to sexually assault another. But because this is an LGBT issue, it's very limited in where they are showing this story. It's crazy. But check this out. This is absolutely insane.
Would you like to hear it?
I'd love to hear it.
For the first time, Jason Rusk is hearing the 911 call his son made in the early morning hours of January 25th.
I shot Sergeant Gibson.
Do what?
I shot Sergeant Gibson. I pulled a gun on him because he's advancing on me.
Is he breathing?
He just fell out.
Probably would have asked, "Are you okay?" first. Then, when I determined he was okay, I would go ahead and gather the facts about the subject that's being called in, or defendant, you might call him. Look, this is an attempted sexual assault, and we're hearing on the phone a young patrol officer whose boss just tried to sexually assault him. And he admits it clearly in the 911 call. He admits that the sergeant did this to him. And besides, the sergeant is a known gay officer, never had a problem before. This is just a bad position for everybody. Let's continue.
The 911 call goes on for just over 5 minutes. That's when responding officers show up to find Gibson had been shot 3 times, seriously hurt in his stomach and shoulder. Court documents show Gibson told officers Rusk shot him after a verbal argument. But Rusk, his dad, and his lawyers say it was much more than that.
You know, it started to get creepy.
Jason Rusk says his son told him about unwanted attention he got from his superior officer leading up to the shooting, and that he had reported it to others on the force.
I just want you to imagine for a moment this happening, like I said, to the opposite sex. We wouldn't be here right now wondering why the sergeant had not been arrested for attempted sexual assault. Perhaps the James City Police Department is corrupt to the bone. Clearly, the video shows the sergeant placing his hand on his underling's thigh and actually put his arm around the younger officer. So the officer shot 3 times because he was scared. The fact that he told a bunch of other people in the department and he told his family gives credence to his story that the sergeant did things inappropriate. So the question, I guess, why would he be sitting with the sergeant in a bar or a restaurant knowing this? That's what I find strange. He made reports, he told his family. Was it that the police department did not believe their officer? Let's continue.
There was a year's worth of grooming that had taken place.
Rusk says his son is the victim of unwanted sexual advances and had been for a long time.
Extremely inappropriate touching, stalking, the grooming, the previous to the incident assaults.
We reached out to Gibson several times to ask him about these allegations. He declined to speak with us. We also requested from JCCPD a record of any complaints filed against Gibson during his time there. We were denied.
Police departments haven't figured out yet that they have to cooperate with the media. If the media requests prior incident reports about an attempted sexual assault within the department, that is public record, and that should have been released, especially when the victim wanted that to be done. For an entire year, this officer made complaints. He spoke to anybody who would listen, but nobody would, and this is the result. So what is the James City Police Department doing about it? As far as we know, nothing, other than charging the younger officer with aggravated battery with a firearm. Really? Isn't this self-defense, kind of?
The video shows the officers at the bar prior to the shooting. You can see them sitting across from each other at the start. Then you'll see Gibson move in to sit next to Rusk. Gibson reaches for Rusk's hand under the table, which seems to be met with hesitation from the younger officer. Then, just about an hour before the shooting, the two are seen leaving together. After Gibson puts his hand on Rusk's shoulder, you see Rusk forcefully push him off and put a finger in his face before walking away.
I mean, guys, it's pretty clear what was going on just from the video. And as we all know, video does not lie. He placed his arm around the kid's waist as he's coming to sit closer to him. And you can see the sergeant pulling the kid closer and the kid pulling away, especially outside. You can clearly identify the sergeant as he is attempting to put his arms around the younger officer. And I would say this is a clear-cut case of self-defense.
We don't know what happened next, but after the shooting, Rusk makes this claim to the 911 dispatcher.
I told him to stop. He kept going. I thought he was gonna rape me. Help me. Help.
If our client was a female, this case would be drastically different.
Rusk's lawyer says the video and 911 call make a clear case for self-defense.
I think it'll show that certain steps weren't taken that needed to be taken.
This is why a majority do not report things like this, because they are not investigated. Even after complaints are filed, there is favoritism to senior officers, always. That's why nothing was done. Allegations of attempted sexual assault, and they just automatically put the onus on the younger officer. But anytime someone advances on you like this, invades your space, if you believe they're going to hurt you, or you believe you're going to be raped or assaulted, you have the right to defend yourself. And I suspect this case won't even make it to trial.
The attorney says those steps, like looking into Rusk's claims of unwanted sexual advances, could have prevented what Rusk's dad calls a tragedy, which will affect his son for the rest of his life.
He told people from the get-go that he was sexually assaulted. He said no, and he kept on. He said no, and he kept on. If I had a daughter in the same position, we wouldn't even be here. We wouldn't have an innocent person fighting for their freedom.
Williamsburg officers are investigating the shooting. They had no comment on this story. James City County Police also declined to comment. Calls to the prosecutor trying the case were unreturned. You can hear the complete 911 call on wavy.com. I'm Julie Millay, 10 on your side.
And that's going to do it for me here at midnight on the East Coast of the United States. We will see you right back here again at midnight. And please hit that like button. And if you really like the videos, why not subscribe? It's free and it helps me a great deal. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.